And of course, have you heard the news? James Harden wants out of Houston, evidently by any means necessary. Lots to talk about. First take in the house. Let's go.
We're not chasing perfection in terms of 16-0. We're chasing Lombardis.
Throws it to the left side of the end zone. Touchdown. Deontay Johnson. He steps out of one, steps out of two, into the end zone. The Steelers double their lead.
And a Barber in. Touchdown. Throws to Logan Thomas. Wide open. Washington has their first lead of the game. Tipped up in the air and intercepted. Washington has knocked off the last unbeaten in the NFL.
Possession down ball was heavy in this football game, and we paid the consequences of it, a failure in it, such as life in our game. I'm excited about facing the adversity of losing with this group, man, and smiling in the face of it and preparing and getting ready for our next challenge.
Stephen A., I don't know what happened yesterday. Your Steelers are no longer undefeated at the hands of all teams. Washington blowing a 14-point lead. What's going on, everybody? Welcome into First Take. Max Kellerman, Stephen A. Smith. I'm Molly Karen Rose. Stephen A., was this actually a good thing for your Steelers?
Well, first of all, good morning. Good morning. I see that you transitioned from the fly outfit to the sweater look. Just this fly way to go. Max Kellerman, Matrix today. All right. We'll work with it. Anyway, here's the deal. I love the fact that the Steelers lost. It doesn't bother me at all. I knew that the perfection that we saw from them record-wise was not real. We've seen holes in their team on too many occasions where wins were too rough to come by. And yesterday, losing to the Washington Redskins, the Washington football team, the one that has no name, who used to be called the Redskins but is no longer. That football team, I love the fact that the Steelers lost this game because, again, they've looked absolutely awful in their last two games. Obviously, scheduling has a lot to do with that. Big Ben Roethlisberger hasn't looked that impressive. Their running game is virtually non-existent without James Conner, and with them, I'd consider it average. And so when I look at it from that perspective, I like the fact that they lost this game because guess what? You're on notice. You might be 11-1, but you can do all of this for naught. You can get to the postseason and then get bounced out in the very first round, not even make it to a divisional playoff game. Why? Because you look like hot trash. This is the bottom line with the Pittsburgh Steelers right now. On the defensive side of the ball, we have to understand something. Devin Bush goes down for the season early in the year. Obviously, Bud Dupree went down last week. This kid Spillane that replaced Devin Bush, now he might be out. So they're compromised in their linebacking core, and we understand that some of the better teams in the NFL are going to take advantage of that, which is what you end up facing come postseason time, which puts more pressure on your offense to show up and produce. You got Big Ben Roethlisberger, can't be making mistakes. You sitting there, you going wide at 5 wide with Juju Smith-Schuster, Deontay Johnson, James Washington, Claypool and the crew, Eric Ebron. You got to show up. You got to produce because it's going to come down to the Steelers offense and specifically their ability to throw the football with a minimal amount of mistakes in order to give them the chance that their record says they deserve in order to get to the AFC Championship game and ultimately the Super Bowl. I haven't seen that from them the last few weeks. We certainly haven't seen it from them the last 2 games. And as a result, they got their comeuppance. I think ultimately the loss will be good for them. Not what you said, Max, last week in terms of their struggles, but it was a wake-up call. I said, no. They need to lose, okay? Because they ain't no 16-0 quality team. They ain't no 15-1 quality team as far as I'm concerned. And that reared its ugly head yesterday afternoon. I'm happy about the loss, to be honest with you. Now we can get on with the season and really preparing ourselves for the postseason.
No, it's an understandable loss, but that's not the same thing as saying it's a good loss. You play 3 times in 13 days. It's understandable that you lose. You play right after you beat Baltimore, your chief rival. It's understandable that you lose. You play on a short week after having no bye for forever because your schedule got messed around twice because of the Titans and the Ravens COVID outbreaks. It's understandable that you lose. You play a Washington team that has a bad record and is frankly underrated with a backup quarterback who we thought his career was over and he might lose his leg. It's understandable that you lose, but it's a bad loss. It's not a good loss. The reason it's a bad loss is because it was obviously a trap game for all the reasons I just said. And a special team needs to know how to overcome that. especially after the Ravens. They were lucky. I thought that was such a great win for them against Baltimore because they beat the backups, right? Like, they beat a depleted Baltimore team, but it was really tough, and Coach Tomlin basically chewed them out to the media after the game. So I thought, oh, okay, they can't rest on their laurels. They understand they played poorly, and they have a lot to correct facing a Washington team that's been playing better, like the Giants, as the season goes on. Right? Like Ron Rivera, and you've been talking about Joe Judge and the NFC East, the two teams that were considered to be the bottom feeders of the bottom feeding division, in fact, had a culture change on the top, and it's doing them well. So you knew this could be a trap game, and you had to avoid it. And Stephen A., they were avoiding it. They had the game in hand. Pittsburgh was going to win this game. And they allowed playmakers, Alex Smith, who was once the first pick in the draft, on the other side of the ball to outplay them. Roethlisberger did not look good, and he hasn't really looked good recently. He's regressed as the season went on. Understandable, again, coming off a catastrophic injury, 38 years old, by and large, has had a very good season considering, but hasn't looked great recently. The run game. Here's the worst part about the loss, Stephen A. They ran the ball, what was it, 14 times?
21 yards.
21 yards.
21 yards.
That's you run the ball 14 times, you get 21 yards on the ground. That's bad run blocking. That's losing the battle up front. That Pittsburgh can't be that kind of team. Pittsburgh has to be the kind of team that's going to beat you in 2 of the 3 phases of the game. They have to be better than they were. Yes, I understand why they lost. But because we knew all that going in, and so did they, and they had the game in hand, that's a bad loss.
Max Kellerman, right now, the Steelers rank 29th in the league in rushing. These are the Steelers we're talking about here. Can you tell me any time in their history that you can recall that they've ranked that low, running the football? It just doesn't happen. Now, we understand we understand even with Le'Veon Bell, their running game per se is as good as it was, may not have been quote unquote elite because they always threw the football since Big Ben Roethlisberger has arrived, for the most part anyway. We understand that. All I'm saying is that they've always been able to run the football. That has not been the case. It isn't the case now, which puts even more pressure, not just on the arm, but the decision-making of Ben Roethlisberger in terms of making sure you minimize the mistakes and get the ball to just the numerous number of receivers that you have at your disposal. How many teams can say they have 5 dudes that are legitimate, bona fide, big-time targets? I'm talking about Claypool, Juju Smith-Schuster, James Washington, Deontay Johnson, Eric Ebron. I mean, damn. You got all of these targets, and you know what? I don't blame you for throwing the football. I don't know if you need to throw it 53 times, but I don't blame you for throwing the football 40 times a game. But you've got to minimize the mistakes. And unfortunately, for Big Ben Roethlisberger, it's not that he makes an abundance of them, but it always seems like the mistakes that he makes come at the most ill times. Just ill-timed mistakes, just the wrong time, and that's what really this is about. In the end, what have I said to you? It's about the Steelers. When you get to this point, being 11-0 at the time, chasing an undefeated season or whatever the case may be, Patrick Mahomes in Kansas City, all right? Ryan Tannehill with Tennessee, Baker Mayfield in Cleveland coming, Miami coming, Buffalo with Josh Allen coming. Are you sure, Steelers, you're going to be ready? Because I haven't seen that from them the last few weeks, and they got their comeuppance. I have no problem with it. None.
Here are the 2 issues for the Steelers heading into this game. One, you're undefeated. You're relieved as a Steelers fan they got the loss out of the way. But come on, man, they were undefeated going into Week 13. Yeah. Of course that's a big deal that you lose a game. Who wouldn't want to be undefeated? That's one. 2, the question every team in the AFC has to ask. Can that beat the Chiefs? You're not going to beat Kansas City running the ball 14 times for 21 yards. And here's the other thing. You think Alex Smith is tough as a playmaker at the end of a game with the game on the line? Oh, Lord. Patrick Mahomes with Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce? Did the Steelers do anything to make you believe that they could beat Kansas City? Forget about Buffalo or anymore. Kansas City. The answer yesterday
we'll get into that later.
Understandable loss, but not a good one.
All right, guys, I will say this, Stephen. Yeah.
Before we go, let me say
Go
this
ahead,
to
Stephen
you.
A.
This is the third season. 2 seasons ago, the Steelers ranked 31st in rushing. Last season, they were 29th. This year, they're 29th. That is not Steeler football. Not to be. What did Tomlin say when he first got the job, Matt?
Yeah.
Yep. Run the ball, stop the run. Steelers football. Yep.
I will say this really quickly. We're going to transition right now, though, guys. Washington was on 10 days rest between games, while the Steelers just 4 days rest. So it really was a quick turnaround. Something like that hasn't happened in 50 years. So I got to give them that excuse. Let's keep it